with Michael Carroll. Michael, you might just tell us a small bit here about your herd.
Yeah, so we have typical, well, they're a 600 kilo cow on average over the whole herd, predominantly grass based. We're doing 386 protein for the year last year, 530, 535 supplied to the Dairy Gold. Predominantly grass based. We're feeding them just over a ton of ration. We'd like to get it lower, should hopefully be lower this year. We're about a kilo per day down compared to last year. We're stocked overall at one livestock unit, a cow, basically a livestock unit to the acre, 2.5 to the hectare overall, including all silage ground and all calves and cattle and everything.
So I suppose just as we're approaching breeding season, I see you've collars here and all the cows. So is that doing heat detection for you?
Yeah, our collars, they are purely for heat detection. They actually do an ID in the parlour, but they are for heat detection. We had before, when we were milking, it was around 100 cows, we had tail paint, and with a smaller parlour, and when we got the bigger parlour, then you just didn't have the time to keep on top of the tail paint. So they're for heat detection. So once milking is over, you pop onto the computer and you can see who's in heat then and who's to be served the following morning. That's the way it works.
It's just increasing efficiency, I suppose.
It is. No, it is only an aid. Like it's, you're still relying when you're at the cow, and you'll still see her markings. And if you see anyone bulling, you'll write them down. And you will. It is only an aid at the end of the day. There are all the other markings that you need to see, like that she's well covered over, and you know when there's a cow rising, and she has the markings on her and everything. And the other part it does as well, you can pop onto the computer and you can see that she was in heat if she's on 3 weeks ago, or if she was only on last week and stuff like that, that you know she's probably not in heat. So it's just an extra tool that's there with it to use. Like,
yeah, very good. So I suppose just on your breeding, what will kind of be the key characteristics you look for when you're selecting your bulls?
So when we're selecting the bulls, we will there's plenty milk kind of in the herd, so we won't pick any high milkers or anything. We'll typically go for, on average, about 100 kilos plus 100 kilos of milk. We won't go any more than that. We'll have some bulls that'll be plus 115, there'll be more than only plus 50. The EBI, like, we'll try for about 100 for milk and 100 for fertility. One thing we started looking at this year is our maintenance figure. Our maintenance figure is relatively low. It's only 10 euros, which would probably lead on to having a 600 kilo cow on average. But it's one thing we started to look at, making sure we pick a few high maintenance bulls. And my own big one is, I will always look at the dams, so that if the genomics kind of fail or go down, then if the dam, like as I say, we did 386 protein here last year, so there's no point in me picking a bull out of a dam that's doing anything less than that. So that's one of our big ones here, where we'll go through and spend the time to pick the bulls that have the good solids in their background, in the pedigree.
So Michael, I suppose, how long is breeding season typically for you?
So typically the breeding season last year it was 11 weeks, so I'd be hoping to keep it something similar. We start breeding on the 20th. We started on the 20th of April, so we're at a week. So we'll hopefully be finished in 11 weeks. Actually, one thing we did this year was any cow that we weren't breeding off, we had a long gestation, a Charolais, and for the week before we started, we put some of the cows we weren't going breeding off in calf to a Charolais, so that they'd come in, then they'd meet all the other Friesian or the other dairy cows in afterwards. When we're at the end of breeding, for our very last week, we will use a bull that has a very, very short gestation in order just to tighten it up and pull that back.
And keep your calving as efficient as possible, I suppose. Get
it all done. When you're in the first weeks of January, you don't really want to start, and then when you get to end of March and April, you just want to get finished. So that's when we do the beef. Like we've used a mix of the beef, and like we've used speckled parks, we've used whiteds, the pollies and the charlies with Belgian blues, and this year I've actually gotten a few with the dairy, the Gene Ireland, with the beef programme, that we're going to use a few Albrechts just to see how they go, because Albrechts are always very high on the dairy beef index, and we'll see what happens. The cows then that we wouldn't be breeding off, like we'll pick cows that slow milkers, cows that wouldn't have nice udders, cows with kind of poor temperaments, and then kind of poor performers then are the ones that we'll put the beef onto them straight away. There wouldn't be a whole lot of questions really. Less and less of them every year as time has moved on, but when you're selling them, the heifers, like, it's nice to stand over and say you're happy with them. Like if anyone called and they could ask to look for a cow, next thing you could see that there's a cow and she's an awful udder, and he's after buying them. So it is nice to stand over your stock when you're selling them.
You sell a lot of your stock through GrassTech. Have you found the service?
Yeah, and with all our stock over the last good number of years now have been sold through GrassTech. I find it very good. We built up a good relationship over the years, and like one thing you find, if a customer comes to the yard with the GrassTech rep, like that, he knows what he's coming for, he knows what stock you have, and he's interested in your type of stock, because that's typically the type of stock that he has or is looking for, and he knows it straight away. He has all the figures got, and our stock are suited to his requirements. And even like over the last couple of years, the same person has come back again. So like the system works in because the stock are suited to that person. Like.
So just then on genotyping, what benefits are you seeing from that?
It kind of reaffirms what you think anyway. If you'd more or less know from milk recording she's a good cow, the genomics will confirm it, but it will also pick out ones that are better or worse than others, or than they could be. And by constantly picking your top EBIs and your top balance, really, then, because like we've sold cows that have extremely high fertility and overall did have a very high EBI, but you're unevenly weighed on fertility, and you can pick it out and you can pick them out better that way. It's more information on it. You can't have enough of it.
So Michael, I suppose just on your heifers here, did you synchronise them or use sex semen?
We haven't used sex semen. We're a small bit late to the party with that. A lot of the good bulls were already booked up. For the synchronisation then, we don't. We started breeding, there was 30 heifers, we started breeding a week ago, and there was half of them, naturally, half of them came in the first week, and then after that first week passed, we injected all of them, what was left then this morning, with Estromet, and whatever will come in now in the next 2 or 3 days will be served, and after that there might only be 2 or 3, and we'll fix time them after that, but they'll still all be served within, it'll take within 2-3 weeks, they'll all be done. We'll be down to very few, but we don't synchronise. I don't know why really, it's just there's a bit of workload in getting it all done at the start. There actually, in my opinion, there isn't any need to do all of them. We've half of them done within the week with no intervention, and there's an awful lot of them to come very early in the spring as well at the same time. It spreads it out a small bit in the spring anyway. That's the way we do it.
Very good. The heifers here look in super order. When was the last time you would have weighed them now before breeding?
We last weighed them just after Christmas in January, before calving started, and on average they were 320, something like that. They were over 300 anyway. So we pulled a ration on them then, because they were ahead of target. They were fine. We do a lot of when there's calves, we don't do any weighing, but as soon as they come into for the winter, we'd weigh them and divide them up into 3 groups, and we'd start feeding on the small ones, the juniors, seniors, intermediates as we call them, and the lighter ones would get 3 kilos a ration, the middler ones would get 2 kilos, and the heavier ones would only get a kilo ration, just something to get them up. And they're monitored then, the weights, we do a good bit of work on the weights over the winter. It's easier to do it over the winter. There's a bit of hassle in trying to do it over the summer, and you kind of know then that they're at the weight they should be, and the other side of it, then we kind of need them that well, because we don't have the facilities when they come in then next winter. When they'll come in next winter, we don't have the facilities to put them in a separate bunch. They have to be mixed in with the cows straight away. So she needs to look after herself, and that's another big reason why we have to have them in good order and ready to go, because we can't be minding them and put them in a separate pen. They're in with the main herd of cows for the winter straight away. They're divided up, or the yard is divided up into who's calving earliest and latest, and that's it. We don't have any options really, so we have to have them like that.
Very good, that's perfect. Thanks a million for your time anyway, Michael.